have you here with us today on City Life. On the program, Dan Coward from the New Zealand Fire Service is back. We talk about joint disease in pet animals with Nick from Rolleston Vets. We find out about an art exhibition at CPIT and the latest in movies with John Hunter. But first on the program, Esther from Eldernet. Good to have you on City Life.
Thank you.
Tell me, what is Eldernet first before we get into your study?
Okay, so Eldernet's New Zealand's largest online searchable resource for older people. It's available on www.eldernet.co.nz, and older people and those people who are supporting them can come online and find out information about services available to them when perhaps they're thinking that they might need a little bit more help. So it could be help at home, they might want to look at moving into a retirement village or even into residential care.
When I saw the word Eldernet, I was like, yay, we're getting someone to teach us about how to use computers with the older community in Christchurch. But you do have a relationship with...
Yeah, there's a great organisation around called SeniorNet. SeniorNet is a fantastic organisation. It's run mainly by volunteers. People can go and find where their community SeniorNet resource centre is. They can then go along, learn how to search the web, send emails, upload photographs. So it's a great service, and people really should head along there if they'd like to know how to use the computer a bit better. Now,
Eldernet is from Christchurch, right? And it's a family business.
Absolutely.
Tell me more about that.
So Eldernet is a family-owned and operated business. We are based in Christchurch, although we are nationwide. It's my family business. The director of the company is Eleanor Bodger, who's my mum. There's me and a group of other people in the team there who work to support both older people and the providers of services for older people, so that everyone's able to find a place to communicate what's available and those sorts of things.
Okay, well let's look at the latest study.
Okay, so what happened in the Canterbury earthquakes, obviously for places like rest homes, retirement villages and home support services, they had to keep going. Older people continued to need their support, so they had to just soldier on. After the earthquakes, I had a business trip booked up to the Waikato. I was up there, and all I could think about was the fact that people kept asking me all the time, what should we do? What's the best thing that we should do? What worked really well for providers down there? You know, did the emergency plans work? And I lay in bed in the evenings and thought, oh my goodness, I've got to get this information from the Christchurch providers out to the rest of New Zealand. So I came back home and spoke to the Canterbury District Health Board, and we approached them for some funding so that we could commission some research on the lessons that we learnt here in Canterbury. That went through incredibly well. The DHB contributed some funding, and we were able to bring on Dr. Sue Carswell, who's an independent researcher, to conduct the research. She went and we did something quite unique. We offered the interview to all the providers, which meant that we had an enormous survey. It took her an incredible amount of time, and some of our staff went out and helped. We interviewed owners of rest homes, owners and operators of retirement villages, home support services, and also workers on the ground themselves. So we interviewed cooks and cleaners and caregivers. And we talked about what did you learn, what really helped, what didn't work so well. And we've compiled that all together in a research document called What We've Learnt. And that's available for free for anyone to look at on the Eldernet website.
Okay.
And we hope that it's a way of sharing the lessons that we learnt with everyone else, so that if something happens to them, it could be a flood or a volcano or just a flu outbreak, that there's some lessons there that people can take on board, and that it will help so that we don't have, the same sorts of mistakes happening again.
Okay, let's look at some of the things that were uncovered in your research.
Okay, so one of the things that really stood out is that providers of services to older people did an amazing job of putting those people first. And for me personally, one of the things that I find really amazing about that is often those people are some of the lowest paid workers in our economic environment. Caregivers often get paid minimum wage, but these people turned up, whether they were rostered on or not, and continued to deliver an amazing service to people at a really stressful time, because these people may have suffered great personal loss themselves, may have lost their homes, their businesses, their friends and family. So that was pretty amazing. There were some other amazing figures around the fact that the Canterbury region lost over 600 aged care beds. So that's a phenomenal lack of choice all of a sudden for people, and it's meant that for those people, the 300 or so people who were evacuated from Canterbury from aged care facilities, it's actually meant that there's not enough beds for them to come back into. So it's really been quite a big learning for providers as well as the District Health Board around how we can best manage that evacuation, the repatriation and the immediate responses.
Okay, so it's called the What We've Learnt Guide. Do you hope that other businesses will pick this up and have a look at, this?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's my vision that we'll be able to take this document all around New Zealand. On Monday we had a research launch here in Christchurch. We had speakers from the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority, the District Health Board and Dr Carswell herself. I'd like to replicate that all around New Zealand, perhaps have some geologists or geographers who could talk about natural disasters that other areas might be impacted by, and have people able to come together and listen to the learnings that the people here have been able to share.
What's the feedback been so far?
Just that people have been really pleased to hear their own stories, that people are really pleased to celebrate what went well, because a lot of things did go really well. There was a lot of September gave us a little bit of a practice run, unfortunately, but it did mean that people had thought a little bit more about what they needed to do. People were a little bit more resourced for the fact that they may have to cope by themselves for a while, which was something that surprised some people. Some people weren't prepared for the fact that they may have to do everything by themselves for a long time, that water and power and sewage can stay off for more than a day, that it can stay off for weeks. So, it's a really interesting research document, and it's written in common language.
Okay.
So Dr Carswell's made a great effort to demystify, the research world, and people that I gave it to proofread, I was just saying, look, please just have a look at the layout, and they were absorbed by it, couldn't put it down. It's really short, it's only 34 pages, but it's got some really easy to access information in it.
Can you see on your website, Eldernet, can you see what the most searched for item is or subject is?
No, the Eldernet website is designed to give everyone sort of a clean slate when they come on board. So what people can come on board, come onto the website and they can look for home support services, they could look for retirement villages or rest homes. We're lucky here in Canterbury that we've also got funding from the Canterbury District Health Board. So people are able to see actual residential care vacancies on a live report. So because moving into residential care is a little bit like going into a hotel, in that if there's no room at the inn, you can't come in. So here in Canterbury, you can actually come onto the Eldernet site and look at that live report that tells you where you may be able to access residential care.
Cool. Okay, what's the website again?
www.eldernet.co.nz.
Excellent. Esther, good to have you on the programme.
Lovely, thank you.
Now, it's my pleasure to welcome back to City Life Dan Coward from the New Zealand Fire Service. Where have you been?
I've been a few places.
Okay.
Gold Coast and also in Wellington.
Okay, so holidaying and working?
No, both work, unfortunately.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Not much in the way of holidays at the moment.
Right, okay, but one day soon you'll get a holiday?
I'm sure I will this summer.
All right, well, it's good to have you back.
Yeah, likewise.
I must say, Mark Thomas has been doing a very good job.
Oh, of course he has.
Yeah, he writes a column as well, so...
He does, yeah. It's really good, yeah.
So how are things going at the New Zealand Fire Service? Really
good, yeah. We're really deep in our planning process. So one of the things that we've done is we've set up a web address, and what we're after is people's feedback on the fire service around what they think we should be doing into the future. What do our new stations need to look like? What do they think? We just want some feedback from Christchurch people around our rebuild. We've got to rebuild a lot of stations. We're working really closely with Sarah and all our partner agencies in the emergency services field. So we're looking at how do we best locate ourselves. So we've got this web address, and it's chchfeedback@fire.org.nz.
So how long has this been up and running for?
We set it up yesterday afternoon, so we just launched it, and we're quite excited to hear what the people of Christchurch have got to say about what they want in their communities.
Okay, it's been going for one day, but have you had anybody email in yet?
Yeah, we have already,
yes?
Which is fantastic.
Okay, tell us about some of those.
Yeah, so a lot of people are saying they want to still see us in their community. There's a real big push, and there's a real big understanding that we should be co-locating with our partner agencies, that we should be combined. So yeah, we just want to hear what other people think about what we should look like into the future. Should we rebuild our classic fire stations where the trucks can be seen from everywhere? What do they want? Do they want community halls attached? Do they want the ability to access the fire service a lot greater? So we're just really curious to know what the people think they should be having before we go and start planning and rebuilding throughout Christchurch.
Was it a surprise that people were asking, you know, for, say, fire and police and ambulance to cohabitate? Was it a surprise, or was this something
No.
you've thought about before?
Look, this is something we've thought about for a very long time. We actually do this in Hamner. In Hamner, the police, fire and ambulance are all in the same building. Throughout New Zealand, we have police community constables on fire stations. A number of stations we have ambulances. Here in Christchurch, we also have ambulance and fire together in one of our stations already. So this is nothing new, but it's what do we need to be doing into the future? And we really want to know what people think. We're excited about it. The government expects it. I think the community expects better spend of public funds. So this is our way of finding out what people exactly want and what they think. So we incorporate that into our planning.
Because in New Brighton at the moment, the fire service is in with police, is that right?
No, there's ambulance down with the police because they've lost their station.
That's right.
But we've moved one of our permanently crewed fire trucks from our central station down into New Brighton just because we're conscious of the risk that exists in and around that area, the damage to the road and infrastructure. So we've looked at beefing our resources up, and that's around supporting the community needs in that area.
Okay. Now, how have things been going this week? How are the fire calls?
Believe it or not, down. Really quiet week, quieter than what we'd expect for this time last year. So we're really pleased by that. Maybe the snow kept a lot of people indoors for a lot longer than what we thought, but no, certainly down on what we'd expect for 2010.
Okay.
So quite pleased. The thing that still worries us is our deliberately lit fires, our arsons are still considerably high. So they attributed almost 10% of our workload in the last week.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we're hoping that with the school returning, that may reduce some of it because we do believe that a lot of it is opportunist from children experimenting and playing.
Okay.
But we're hoping that will reduce. But it's just a real constant reminder for people to be vigilant about what they do with their rubbish, what they do with their homes, the security of it, and also from a business perspective, what are they doing around their property, what security measures are they taking, and what are they doing to ensure that no rubbish is stored and goods are stored that people can get access to and set fire to.
Are they damaging buildings, earthquake-damaged buildings, or other buildings as well?
It's a mix. There are the opportunists that are taking advantage of vacant homes that are damaged. There are also people taking advantage of businesses that are up and running. We saw a few weeks back where they were targeting healthcare type centres and hospital environments. So, you know, those sorts of people really do worry us because there are people there, and we are certainly working with the police. We consistently work with them. Believe it, prior to the earthquake, we'd actually looked at doing a joint task force to actually really target the crime that was associated with fire and tagging, and do a joint approach with the City Council to really address that risk. And it's something that we will eventually return to, but what we're really hoping is that with the redevelopment of the Christchurch CBD and the rest of the city is that we actually come up with innovative ideas and ways to reduce that occurring into the future.
Okay, going back to this email address, chchfeedback@fire.org.nz. When people email in, do they get an email back from a fireman?
Absolutely, we respond back to the emails thanking them for their contribution, and also ensuring and ask them a couple of questions like, do they have smoke alarms in their house? And if they don't, that we can arrange a time to come out and make sure that they do have smoke alarms in their home.
All right, I think it's a great initiative by the New Zealand Fire Service for people to email in their ideas for the future of Christchurch and rebuild.
Absolutely.
chchfeedback@fire.org.nz. Dan, really good to have you back on the programme.
Yeah, likewise.
See you back again next week.
Absolutely.
Excellent. After the break, we catch up with Nick from Rolleston Vets. You're back with City Life, and it's great to have Nick from Rolleston Vets here. Good to see you.
Good, yeah, good to be here.
Okay, today we're talking about joint disease in pet animals.
Yes, so typically arthritis is the big key word. There are a number of joint diseases, but arthritis is the biggie that we see a lot, really. So one of the I would say the most common condition that we see, especially in dogs.
Okay, so is it older dogs, or can it be younger ones as well? With humans, it's not just the older people.
Can be younger dogs. There are a number of what we call developmental orthopaedic diseases, or problems that very young animals are born with. And one of the big causes of seeing arthritis in older animals is when these developmental orthopaedic conditions aren't diagnosed correctly in young animals, and that's the consequence, is that arthritis will develop later in life. So I guess talking about joint disease in very young animals could be a topic on its own, but so yeah, one of the biggest causes that we're seeing now of these days of arthritis in older animals, particularly dogs, is secondary to poorly diagnosed problems in a young animal.
Okay, what are some of the symptoms in, say, for example, a dog?
Okay, so dog's a classic animal to talk about, and it can be an obvious lameness or an obvious limp, but sometimes it can be swelling in the joints, sometimes just not wanting to be as active as you'd think they would be. And I think what people really need to take home here is that a dog that's limping, some people come into me and say, he's limping, but he's not sore. Now, that's just not, it doesn't make sense. So whether or not the dog is happy and wagging its tail and responsive, if the dog's limping, it means that it's sore. So if we can do something about that, then that's, you know, that's a big benefit for everyone.
Okay. What about symptoms in cats?
Cats is really interesting. That's very different, and they're funny little creatures, cats, and we're finding sort of more and more out about them all the time. And there's been a lot of research done on cat arthritis very recently, and it's shown that those classic sort of symptoms that we see in dogs that's so obvious, with limping or holding the paw up or licking sore joints, we just don't see that. So cats, often all we see is not wanting to jump, getting grouchy, and just laying around and not being as active, and that can be as simple as that. Some of the problem is that in cats, the place that they get arthritis mainly is often the spine and around that spinal area and tail and hip area. So much more difficult to sort of for the layperson to sort of understand and to get an indication of where this pain is coming from. So quite interesting. And sometimes we don't know ourselves, so sometimes we'll trial these older cats on pain relieving drugs just to see what happens, and it's amazing what response we get.
Okay, so you talked about the joints that are affected in cats. What about in dogs? Is there pausing?
Okay, in dogs mainly we have hip problems, knee problems, or stifle we call it in dogs rather than knee.
Okay.
In the front leg we see it often in elbows. The wrist is very unusual to get arthritis. We can get it in toe joints, and that's often secondary to trauma earlier in life, so dislocated toes and things that haven't been sort of managed maybe as effectively as they could have, and then we end up with arthritis in those joints. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of these conditions we're finding where maybe 5 years ago we'd say this dog's getting arthritis in its hips, it's because it's had an active life. We're finding that it's probably secondary to congenital or developmental diseases that have been hard to pick up in a young animal, and we're seeing the consequence of that later in life.
Okay, so how do you diagnose it? How do you actually know these animals have arthritis?
So usually what will happen is someone will come in and we'll be talking about how the dog's doing, and maybe it's come in for a limp. And then as a veterinarian I will examine its limb, and I'll be looking for such things as bony swelling around the joint, which may indicate long-standing disease. I'll be looking for maybe swelling in the fluid in the joint, and obviously when I manipulate that joint I'll be trying to look for signs of pain. And sometimes we'll get abnormal movement in joints as well, so maybe it's not as stable as it should be, and we might be getting a lever action in a direction that we shouldn't get in action, and that will tell me maybe we've lost or damaged a ligament that might alter the stability of the joint, and that may be the reason why we've got the joint disease. Sometimes we also have infectious disease of joints, and that can be associated with a dog that's unwell or a cat that's feeling physically unwell as also, and maybe has a fever, maybe doesn't want to eat. So all these sort of things that we're looking at.
All right, what can make their quality of life better?
Okay, so we've diagnosed an ageing dog, for instance, with arthritis. There can be a number of options. The classic is pain relieving drugs. Usually when we initiate these medications, we'll initiate them for the life of the dog. Sometimes in early stages of arthritis, before we get major changes, we might advocate the use of supplements, joint supplements that improve the quality and nature of the joint fluid, that will extend the length of time it takes before we're going to have to be more aggressive with medication on the joint. Sometimes we will look at injecting medications directly into the joint so that we can get a better response without having to give medications. These long-term medications, again, are a very rapidly advancing modality in medicine, and so now we have a lot of options as far as oral medication to give, and some of them these days can be given monthly. Just one pill monthly is enough to manage pain, so that's really good. And in the more acute or sudden onsets of pain, when there's instability in joints, sometimes we need to look at surgery. We can maybe talk about that in another time, because it's one of my pet subjects. But
All right. Nick, really good to have you on the program today.
Okay, great to be here.
After the break, we catch up with the editor of the Mainland Press. You're back with City Life, and Chris Tobin from the Mainland Press, the editor of the Mainland Press, is with us on City Life. Good to have you here.
Morning, Khadija. Thank you.
Okay, front page of the Mainland Press. Beautiful picture here.
It is quite stunning, isn't it? It's from the Littleton Harbour Festival Lights. The lady is Paige Adamson. She was performing out there. It was obviously a stunning night. Apparently London Street, the main street of Littleton, was packed for the occasion. A large amount of entertainment. And let's face it, Littleton took a bit of a hammering with the earthquake, but the community's really rallied behind and got out there and attended this function. We've got quite a lot of coverage of this event. Story and photos, page 16 and 17.
Oh, great.
I'd encourage readers to get in and have a look at it.
Okay. Now, cardboard, no thanks. Now, I'm guessing this story has stemmed from our poll on the Rise Up Christchurch Facebook page.
It has indeed, yes. A resounding no. Cardboard cathedrals, yeah. Very nice out there sort of idea, but no thanks, according to our poll. I believe Bob Parker, our mayor, and the Christchurch Cathedral Dean, Peter Beck, they're quite keen on the idea, but it's a bit out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. A cardboard cathedral?
I'm not sure of the actual statistics. Yes, here we go. By 9 a.m. yesterday, that's Tuesday, a total of 3,500 people had voted, with 82% selecting no. So I'm sorry.
Okay, that's quite a big response, isn't it?
Indeed, yes.
Okay, what's inside the paper?
We've got quite a bit. It's a big paper this week. It's 48 pages. I'll just make note of the fact that Sarah, the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority, they've got a bit of a recovery update in here. It's covering about 8 pages. So if you want some valuable information, grab our copy of the paper.
Okay.
And as well as that, it's packed with news stories. So if you turn to page 2, the mother of Cathedral Square, she's keeping the markets going. That's the Cathedral Square market and also the kids market. So
yeah, good.
It's quite a charming story there. That's written by Gina McKenzie, who's our new reporter, joined us recently. Yeah. Gina's also written a good story here on Hammersley Park School in Shirley. It's the old earthquake thing, I'm afraid. It's impacted on the school. Its future's uncertain, and basically it's hanging by a thread. Gina's story will update people there.
Great.
Tom Doudney, he's done a very good story here on generators needed in Sumner. The threat of future power outages means several Sumner-based organisations need to acquire generators to boost their ability to respond to community needs in the event of emergency. Very important for Sumner. If you go through the paper, we asked the mayor about certain issues regarding, all is not well, obviously on council at the present moment. We asked if it's affecting the rebuild of the city. Mr Parker responds there.
I guess we'll have to pick up the Mainland Press to find out what he says.
Yes, you can read it. It'll be rather enlightening, I guess.
Yeah.
Continuing through the paper, Gilbert Wellens, our man out there on the street, he's got the street talk thing going. He goes out and talks to the community, people on the street, and asks questions. This week's question was, from this Monday, the age of getting a learner driving licence rose from 15 to 16 years. In addition, there will be a tougher test from next February, and they asked, what is your opinion? You can read on page, 6.
Just out of interest, if there are people out there who have an idea for Street Talk, can they email you?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah,
just email me at editor@mainlandpress.co.nz,
all right.
and I'll certainly consider it.
Okay, excellent.
And also, we actually like questions to address the Mayor as well. So if people have a question they want to ask Mr Parker, they can email me again at that same email address.
Of course, and if they've got a news tip as well, I'm guessing.
Yes, we need those.
No, your journos are pretty good.
Yes, they're doing a very good job, thank you. So yes, we go through the paper. There's another thing here that's perhaps worth highlighting. The Papanui RSA have started a Saturday morning market from 8 a.m. I visited their facilities last week. They've done an enormous amount of refurbishment there. Perhaps they need a wee bit of money to help pay it off. The large chunk of it has been paid off, of course, but yes, they've started this market, and it'd be good if the local community got behind it to support it, I guess. Sorry,
I just moved that story over to the CTV logo here. Sorry about that, Penny.
Okay.
Okay, and we've only got a few more seconds, so let's have a look at the Bay Harbour News.
Bay Harbour News, certainly. Okay, well, the Rolleston Brass Band feature on the front. They're the best band in the country, so, that's a fantastic achievement. They, They took out the title Champion Band of New Zealand with a 6-point lead, placed first in all A-grade events except one. It's the third time in as many years that the band has won the title, and that's a fantastic feat, really. So they're on our front page with all their trophies and plenty of smiles.
They are an excellent band. Now, I'm sorry, we don't have time to go into the Bay Harbour News, but Mainland Press, that can be picked up, that is delivered to homes in Christchurch?
It's delivered to homes throughout Christchurch, and it's also available at dairies and service stations.
And the Bay Harbour News?
Similar situation over in the Bay Harbour area.
Okay.
It's Littleton, Sumner, Redcliffs, that general area over there.
Excellent. Chris, good to have you on the program today.
Nice to be here. Never, thank you.
After the break, we catch up with Grant from CPIT. Welcome back. Now, very soon, CPIT will be having a week-long celebration of art, design and architecture. Now, Grant, tell me about the event you're working on.
OK, I've been invited by Martin Trustham, who's a manager at CPIT in creative industries, to embrace a number of local artists, Canterbury-based artists, who, of course, with the events with the earthquake, have lost their studio spaces, some of them, and of course have lost exhibiting spaces. So out of a meeting that Martin generated at CPIT of artists and interested parties, somebody said, could we have an exhibition here at CPIT? So with my background in the visual arts and as a curator, I just said to Martin, I would really like to help out here. So the exhibition called A Gathering is, the title reflects, in a sense, a number of different artists with different disciplines that will be brought together and have an opportunity to be part of these activities called Spark.
Tell me about some of the people who will be showing some of their works.
Well, it's a variety of artists, from senior artists to emerging artists. Jane Zusters, who perhaps talk about later, who's based here in Christchurch, who's really mid-career. And there are some younger artists, Shannon Williamson, for example, who's a recent graduate from the School of Fine Arts. There's jewellery, there's ceramics, there's painting, there's sculpture. Well-known Christchurch sculptor Lou Summers is going to be part of it. Doc Ross, who's a photographer based in Sydenham, very affected by the earthquakes because of where he lives, is going to be part of it.
Have you been involved in anything like this before, something so big?
Well, of course, for a number of years I ran a gallery called Campbell Grant, which in fact is my first two names. So I have quite a lot of experience about putting these sorts of things together. Here at CPIT, the exhibition is going to be in the atrium space of the Riach Centre, outside their library, a building designed by Ian Athfield. So temporary screens will be put up and it will be installed on those.
And I believe you're using some of the collection from the CPIT as well.
I am. I had a meeting with their curator, Julie Humby, and I thought if I looked at what was in that collection, which numbers probably 350 objects, I might find things that are interesting, and I certainly did. I found a work by Richard Colleen, who's a well-known Auckland-based artist, very high profile. And it's a work on paper in which it has the date the 13th of June on it, which of course is the date of one of the major quakes.
Yeah.
And with those historical works, I want to write some text panels. The contemporary artist works will be for sale. I'm going to man the show for 3 weeks and be there to engage with audiences and anyone that does come in. I mean, it's a pretty lively foyer anyway, because CPIT is very active, and it's right outside the library. So I'm wanting to make it, you know, a good experience and have the possibility that works can be sold for those artists.
Great. Now tell me about some of the seminars that'll be there as well.
Okay, a gathering will open on Wednesday the 10th of August at 5:30. And there are other seminars that are part of Spark, but for what I'm involved in, at 7 p.m. on that night, Rita Wilkinson, who's a Canterbury-based artist, very well known. She has work in some important collections like Te Papa, and she has a jewellery-based practice. She is very skilled and takes a very conceptual, intellectual approach to her work. She will be delivering a seminar for about half an hour, and I'll be delivering a seminar for about half an hour.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
What's your one on?
Well, my one looks a little bit at my sort of interest in photography, and I'll be looking at some aspects of intimate sort of events that have occurred around the city post the earthquake.
Okay.
One of those is an image of a busker who has been in Christchurch for a long time, and his name is Graeme. I don't even know his surname. And he was outside the museum the other day, and I said, you know, why are you here? Why are you not in Riccarton Mall or somewhere where there's more people? And he said, I have always, he just has a simple recorder, I've always performed in town, and I want to continue to do that so that any tourists that are here can appreciate what I do.
All right. Now you've got some pictures. Let's have a look at those. What's this one here?
Okay, this image here is a photograph taken by local photographer Doc Ross. He has an extensive history as a photographer, and his imagery is wide-ranging. And here we have an empty industrial site, is what it looks like. If you look very closely, there is in fact a liquefaction.
Ah, there is too. I didn't
on the
see that.
ground.
Yeah.
And there we have this sculpture of a sheep.
Yeah.
And of course, the title of the exhibition, in a way, when you read at a gathering and then you look at the sheep, then that works quite well. And I think it's got a bit of a graphic presence. So this particular image will be used at this sort of entry and exit of the exhibition.
Right.
This photographer is also presenting 3 other images that he's taken in the city.
All right. And this one here?
This is a local artist who lives in a tiny little bay in Littleton Harbour. And this is a very miniature painting. This work probably won't be in the exhibition, but I brought it along as an example of what he does. He's untrained, so this little painting could fit in your hand.
Wow.
And his interest in bird life in the harbour itself and in reading is reflected in this symmetrical image.
That's amazing.
He has
Untrained.
an amazing talent.
Gosh. And, okay, and one more. This one here?
This work here is by a Rangiora-based potter called Michael Michaels, who has trained in Australia and is pretty noted in contemporary ceramic practice in this country. There are awards in Auckland called the Portage Ceramic Awards, and he's often been featured in this. And this head relates to his interest in Cycladic art from the Aegean area, and he's taken these forms of very stylised sculptures, often small handheld things, and transformed them into a sort of contemporary take on that.
All right, and finally this piece here.
And finally this piece here is by local artist Jane Zusters, and she has a practice that involves photography, painting and sculpture. And here we have these found hands from a model, obviously. One of them being broken, and where the finger's missing, she's painted it red. And here she's referencing how she feels about what's happened to her. There's writing on the small painting, and it's reflecting, you know, I suppose, the nature of movement and activities that we all experience with the quakes.
Okay, a gathering. Tell us again when it is being held.
It opens on Wednesday the 10th of August and goes through to the 1st of September.
Excellent. And that's at CPIT?
That's at CPIT. So I hope all those people that are watching this will go along over that 3-week period and experience the work.
Excellent, Grant. Really good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Now, here's Jeff Morton.
Graeme Riach from Harmon Lawyers joins me this morning. Morning, Graeme.
Morning, Jeff. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Now, I believe that the Christchurch court system is struggling a little bit with the after effects of the earthquake and the damaged buildings, and so the system's had to be changed slightly.
Yes, well, it is, and that's understandable, as you'll appreciate, because they haven't been able to access their building for hearings, at least, since February. A lot of commercial activity, of course, is still happening in the town, and not just commercial activity, people going about their normal daily lives, and unfortunately sometimes disputes arise in the course of that activity, and they need to be dealt with, and with the court in a bit of a struggle at the moment, particularly for civil matters. You know, it's good to actually look at perhaps other means of resolving those disputes.
Now, one of these means that you mentioned to me was mediation. So what is mediation? How does that work in the context of the law?
Mediation is becoming increasingly popular, and what it is basically a structured meeting between the parties, usually with their lawyers, but not necessarily so. And it's handled and overseen by a mediator who's trained in skills that are required to try and bring parties together to settle their disputes.
So you come around the table. Is it necessary to take a JP, or would it be a judge? Or
there's a similar process in the court system called judicial settlement conferences, and they're chaired by a judge.
Right.
The mediations themselves are normally private individuals, often lawyers who are actually, as I say, have received training in this area and have the skills to bring people to a resolution of the dispute.
So what sort of disputes would arise that you'd be able to use this particular system?
Well, that's the beauty of mediation, actually, Jeff, because pretty much any dispute can be sent to and resolved at mediation. Numerous examples are, obviously there's a mediation process within the employment jurisdiction as a first step in a grievance situation. Mediation in a family law setting, but particularly in relation to civil matters and commercial matters. I mentioned to you before about neighbourhood or neighbour disputes. Right. Obviously, it's quite good to have those resolved by agreement instead of a judge making a decision. Yes. So that the neighbours can, if possible, sort of get on and you know, and so it's not all unpleasant. Right. And similar considerations with contracting parties. Right. Who have an ongoing commercial relationship.
That would be important, wouldn't it, at this particular time? Can you give me some examples of that?
Well, if, for example, there is one party believes the other owes them some money for some reason. Right. They deny that or dispute it. Right. They still want to have an ongoing commercial relationship, so they don't want to destroy it by necessarily going too litigious. Yes. But nevertheless, that dispute has to be resolved some way, and they just find they can't do it themselves. So having a mediator assist can be quite invaluable. So they can sit around the table and you can thrash them out without the formality of a court, is that? Yes, it is an informal and flexible process. The way it works briefly is that each party has a chance to pretty much state their case. Yes. The mediator will ask some clarifying questions, maybe put some topics up on the whiteboard for discussion. go through and discuss those things, and then quite often the parties will break and go to the sort of separate rooms, and the mediator will go and visit each of them and have a chat with them and say, well, okay, you can tell me things in here or that I won't tell the other side unless you tell me to, but might help me to help you to resolve the thing.
So it also would be useful with leases in town. With you were explaining to me that sometimes there's a building that's been well, not destroyed, but the building's accessible and useful, but they can't get in. So there would be between the landlord, wouldn't there?
Yes, I mean there are actually quite a few issues of that very nature at the moment, of course. And leases do have quite commonly a dispute resolution clause in them, and often those also include mediation as one of the processes. So even if it isn't in there, it doesn't stop parties going off to mediation, but if it is in there, then it can actually be required.
So there are advantages and disadvantages, but would the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, do you think?
In most cases, the answer is probably yes. I'm being a bit of an advocate for mediation here, but the advantages are speed. It can be dealt with very, very quickly. Cost. Yes. Normally, if for a commercial mediation, it's about a day, and you pay a mediator's costs along with your lawyers if you've got lawyers there. But that's nothing compared to the cost of an ongoing and full-blown litigation process. But one of the main advantages is that the parties are actually in control of the outcome. They're the ones who make the decision whether to settle or not. So they are owning the process, as opposed to going in front of a judge who, doing what judges do, has to make a decision, and that may favour one party or the other, but rarely does it favour both.
Indeed.
Mediation can come to an outcome that both parties can live with, even if they're not wrapped. And often they won't be, but they find, well, at least I've had it resolved, I can live with it and get on.
Graeme, thank you for that sound advice.
You're welcome.
You're back with City Life, and finally on the program, movies with John Hunter, thanks to Hoyts.
Thank you, Hoyts.
Thank you, Hoyts. Good to have you here.
And good to be here, thank you.
Now, this is a big week for movies.
Yes,
isn't it? Or am I just dreaming that?
No, you're not dreaming it, because we've got a lot to go through. I mean, we're not even going to talk about a movie, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, because it's been shown on TV quite a bit. We've seen the ad for it, so let's talk about the other movies which are starting.
Exactly.
So this is great because, I mean, in the past few months we've had cartoons and action heroes and all that sort of thing. So for you adults out there, for you adults out there, I know we know. Look, hello. We've got something that's. I mean, okay, Calendar Girls was good. I enjoyed that, but now we've got some other movies that we can sort of go out and enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's safe to go to the movies.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I love going to the movies.
Good. Right. Okay, so the first one we've got is Larry Crown. This. I actually saw an interview for this. It was Tom Hanks as stars in the movie. Now, he directed it and he wrote it. He co-wrote it. And it seemed to me it was a vehicle. It's a vehicle for him to actually have a starring role alongside Julia Roberts, who plays the other lead. So the story is that Tom Hanks is an ex-Navy veteran. He's working in a big box store and he gets made redundant, or they call it fired over there. And so he lives alone. He's divorced, and he decides to join a community college to sort of probably better himself and gain sort of more qualifications so he can go out and get a better job. And there he makes friends with the younger classmates, buys a scooter, gets a job in a diner, meets his lovely teacher who's unhappily married, just so it seems, and from there, love blooms.
Really?
So should we look at the trailer?
Let's look at it.
What'd they say?
You have to listen twice.
Larry Crown to the Common Break area? It's Employee of the Month Day. How many will this be?
Oh, I'm not saying 9. Larry Crown, on deck!
Crown, we've come to a parting of the ways.
This sounds like you're firing me. They said it's because I didn't go to college.
Get you some knowledge and you'll be fireproof.
You're never too old to learn.
Can you get this hunk of junk working? How fast does it go? Larry, it's got power!
Didn't see you in the scooter pit last term. You an ex-cop?
Why would you think that?
Tucking in a polo shirt makes you look like one.
This is it. Excuse me. The state requires a minimum of 10 students, so this class is canceled. Thanks.
Is this be shoe 17?
Each of you will tell us how to do something you already know how to do.
How to prepare French toast.
Next.
I gotta take this.
Brain freeze. I wonder if I make any difference to anyone sitting in my classroom. Look up at your audience. Find 3 different focal points. Start on one side, looking into the eyes of whoever's there. Hello. You are way cooler than you appear.
I can't really afford all these new threads.
It tastes gratis. Take off your pants. My boyfriend's here. Put your pants back on.
Look who's waiting for a bus. Do you need a ride?
Fine, but I will not wear that bucket on my head.
In the Navy, I went around the world 5 times, but I would never...
That looks pretty good. And me.
Hello.
Now, hang on. That movie looks good, but I've just been thinking during that whole trailer, you said something about Calendar Girls before, and I was thinking, that movie came out ages ago. You didn't mean that, did you?
No, I didn't mean that. I actually meant Bridesmaids.
Bridesmaids. Hilarious,
and you all
by the way.
picked it up.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
I think I must have been giving you a really blank stare, thinking, Calendar Girls? No.
I was looking sort of at a space between you and Tom, so I was looking over there.
Oh, right. Do you never look at me?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Okay, right, moving right along.
Okay, so the next movie, Horrible Bosses, is a black comedy. It has 3 horrible bosses played by Kevin Spacey, Jennifer Aniston. She's on my list.
Is she?
Yes.
Oh, you finally picked up the list thing.
I've picked up the list thing.
Thank goodness. Actually, Jason Bateman is on my list.
Oh, really?
And he's in this movie.
Wasn't he on the... Oh, no.
I always want to call it Home Improvement, but it's not. It's called Arrested Development.
Okay.
Loved it. Hilarious.
Yes, of course. Okay, and Colin Farrell. Moving back to the movie.
Yeah.
Colin Farrell plays the other horrible boss.
Okay.
This is this movie actually in the States exceeded all expectations. Grossed 28 million in the first week. It's grossed over 100 million in the first sort of worldwide. So it's done very well, and now it's New Zealand's turn.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm looking forward to this one. Let's have a look at it.
Okay, cool.
You want one? It's 8:15 a.m. It's 18-year-old Scott. If you want a promotion, you gotta earn it.
Did I tell you that Harkin tricked me into having a drink at 8 o'clock this morning?
Unless your boss isn't sexually harassing you.
See if this thing's working. Oh, I can make out our little friend right there.
Stop it.
Ooh, Shabbat Shalom. Somebody's circumcised.
You know, yours doesn't sound that bad.
We need to trim some of the fat. What do you mean by trim the fat? I want you to fire the fat people. You can start with Large Marge. Marge, can you come in here, please?
What? I thought he was going to give you a promotion.
Yeah, no, he is. I have decided who I want to be our new vice president of sales. Me. What do you say? Nick, please, we're in the middle of a meeting.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'll just attribute this to your drinking problem.
You would have to admit our lives would be easier if our bosses weren't alive. You could fire Professor Xavier. You mean Hank? Creeps me out, rolling around all day in a special little secret chair.
I don't care how bad our bosses are. We're not murderers.
This little sweetheart right here,
My fiance.
is going to get a peek at my little photo album.
You did all this while I was unconscious?
That's my favorite.
I'm in! Let's kill this bitch! We gotta hire a professional.
Does anyone here kill people for money?
I'm gonna be your murder consultant.
Word.
You wanna pull off a brilliant murder? It's gotta look like it's an accident.
Ah!
You gotta be smart.
It's gotta be worth, what, 15,000? I feel like everything's gonna work out. Look how fast I'm picking out the scrap, you know? I'm moving like super fast. I can't even feel my nose.
Find them vulnerable.
Peanuts? That was a peanut butter sandwich. Are you not good with peanuts?
Whoa, whoa, look at this.
What about little jabs? Little jabs?
My boss, who we're planning to kill, is dying in front of you and you saved his life?
Well, that sounds bad when you say it like that.
I was surveilling your boss. She's incredibly hot.
Don't talk about how hot she is.
She makes herself a little snack, a popsicle, a banana, and finally, a hot dog. And eating them in that weird order, that's not a proper meal. It's cold to hot.
I can crush you anytime I want.
Explain why you were doing 61 in a 25 zone.
I was drag racing.
In a Prius.
I don't win a lot.
That looks really good.
Looks right, doesn't it?
That actually seems like a crew favourite here, a CTV crew favourite. We're probably all going to go as a group.
Excellent. Let's do that.
Okay, you're invited as well.
I'm in for that. Last movie is called From Time to Time.
Yeah, tell me about this one.
Moving it back to the movies.
Yeah, you've got to stop bringing me back to movies.
Focus.
I just want to talk.
Okay.
Okay, so from time to time.
Okay, so this is one that I've sneaked in there. We're playing it at Lincoln next Wednesday. This is a bit of a family movie. So
excellent.
Yeah, it's got a good British cast.
Cool.
From some of the people from Harry Potter. To tell you a wee bit about it, it's about a haunting ghost story spanning 2 centuries.
Cool.
And a 13-year-old mysteriously finds out ways of going from one century to the other.
Ah.
I think we've got a trailer for it.
Okay, let's look at it.
How was your mother?
She's had to go to London. I'm so glad you could come and stay. Who are all these people? They're your family. But they're dead, aren't they?
It's a funny old house, no doubt about that.
Hello?
Who is it? Who's there?
What is it? Do you believe in ghosts?
Don't you?
I do now.
You mustn't be frightened. The house is bound to share some secrets.
This is Jacob.
He's made it look as if Jacob was his son.
What will people say?
Nothing that will interest me.
Who are you?
You can see me.
It's all right. Maybe he can help.
I want him out of this house.
I don't expect he'll stay long.
Oh.
Spooky. What were you going to say?
Nothing.
Okay.
I can't say that.
All right. So it's that showing out at Lincoln on Wednesday.
Next Wednesday,
Next
7:30.
Wednesday at 7:30. Yeah. Tickets on the door.
Yes, it is.
You can find out more information on the Lincoln website.
Yes, www.lincoln.ac.nz.
NZ. All right.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you here on the programme, John. See you next week.
Thanks, Kaneta.
Okay, that is City Life for today. You can get in touch with us. You can email me, kaneta@ctv.co.nz. You can call us 3777 or you can write to us, PO Box 1100 Christchurch. We're now on demand. Just go to ctv.co.nz and click the YouTube logo and find all the City Life episodes on demand. And we're on Facebook, CTV City Life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.